Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of how the globalists really look after their primary chief grifter hustlers and reward them quite richly with well-paid, do-nothing jobs. Now, I've covered this before, but the best paid jobs in Australia are those jobs that underwrite, support, further push the globalist agenda. Those are the best paid jobs. Jobs that produce, create, build stuff. They're not the best paid jobs anymore. So if you have an engineer, like a civil engineer who's in charge of a major road building project, for example, they'll be paid half as much. Let me repeat that: half as much as a director of diversity and inclusion in a government department or a university or something like that. So, a big consulting firm. So the jobs that, or if a propagandist that pushes out propaganda, saying that anyone who disagrees with the globalist project is Hitler, that sort of stuff, they're well paid. But any productive job, a factory manager, an engineer, the guys that build the bridge, the real productive, worthwhile jobs, they pay much less now, far less. Again, half or half as much, or less than that even. So, if you're looking at it, say a civil engineer that might be in charge of building a bridge, say, not some huge bridge, it's 100 miles sort of across a ravine or something, but say a bridge of certainly substance, like it's a major bridge, major public works project. That engineer, say a civil engineer, 10 years bridge building experience, and they're maybe in charge of, or certainly second in charge of the chief designer or whatever of the bridge, they'll be paid just over a third of what a gay lesbian counselling advisor is getting at a university or something like that. So I want to illustrate that. So all the best paid jobs in Australia, the most prestigious, best paid jobs, are nearly all for government NGOs and quangos, and they're all paying significantly better than real productive jobs, such as engineering or somebody, manufacturing manager, someone in charge of a large factory. Those people in those jobs are paid far less. Now, the interesting thing is that it's far easier to get some airheaded, low IQ black lesbian to be the diversity director than it is to find a highly competent engineer to build a bridge. Yet one, even though it's in plentiful supply, is paid much better than the job where engineers are in short supply. Now, it's alleged by certainly every Western government, the Australian government as well, that we're so short of engineers. Oh, we hardly got any engineers. The economy can't grow. There are just no engineers. And yet engineers are paid again, or an engineer in the bridge building case is paid one third of what the diversity director is at some government department. So it'll give you an idea as to where the emphasis and these jobs are effectively money laundering jobs, ideology laundering jobs rather than productive jobs. But they're the ones that the globalists have made sure are the best paid jobs, the most influential jobs, the most prestigious jobs, and so on. And we see this everywhere. It's not just in that. A playwright who writes plays sort of extolling the virtues of black lesbians being in charge of everything, they'll be recipients of numerous grants from government, NGOs, and so on, and they can do very, very well. They can be, making $500,000 a year just because they're pumping out anti-white, pro-mass migration, pro-LGBTQ propaganda. That's just how things are. The entire sort of economy of the West has really been handed over and has become one sort of huge money laundering scheme, I would argue. Now, when the administration of President Trump cut off the money to USAID, or a lot of it, and also defunded various other NGO scams and so on, a lot of money, huge billions, got taken out of that NGO globalist slush fund thing, which was superbly well funded. And if you wonder where does all the money come from, then it came from government handouts and grants, particularly the United States, but here in Australia too. So there's one instance I'm focusing on here, but there's a number that I looked at. I took a look at the people, whether it be in Britain or America or even here in Australia, who were, say, propped up 100% by money that was billions of dollars sort of flowed like rivers into these NGOs. They were paying. So a British politician, for example, was CEO of an NGO that as far as I can tell, they were just a propaganda delivery system. I couldn't see what else they were doing, and but they were being paid or giving, recipient of USAID money, and the CEO of that was a British guy, this wimpy little dweeb, and he's being paid $1 million a year to be the CEO of this NGO that did nothing other than distribute pro-immigration propaganda. So that's how it was. Now, when the money got cut off, that same guy, was instantly hired by a local British NGO and given effectively the same job. He's CEO of a media production company now that does exactly the same thing. So he's still spewing out the propaganda unchanged. And the changeover was seamless. On Monday, the money from USAID was cut off. By Friday, he was in another $1 million a year job being paid to continue the propaganda. So the source of money changed, but he's still, the white taxpayer is paying for him to hate white people and pour hate on white people and call them all Nazis, such as the disingenuous nature of the NGO sort of network these days. Again, they're all money laundering. Now, there's another one I'm looking at here is a guy who he's just a political hack goon, and I look over the last 20 years at his income. Over the last 20 years, his income has exceeded $25 million. So we're talking this is a guy who's well looked after by the globalist machine, and his job was effectively to act as an intermediary between the globalist cabal and the various large international consulting companies to arrange all sorts of very imaginative scams to bring in vast numbers of brown and black people into Australia. It was a mass migration scheme, and there are all sorts of sleazy, underhanded methods being used and employed. Apparently, this guy, when it comes to sleaze and manufacturing consent and getting the parties, the parties to illegally collaborate, then apparently he's quite good at it. I don't know how much bribery is, if any, but so he worked for an NGO that was embedded inside a large consulting company, international consulting company. That NGO was funded by USAID, so he effectively was put out of work when the money dried up. And again, immediately, he's given a job as a special consultant to government on $1 million a year, the same as he was getting previously. Isn't that handy? So very few of these people, particularly at the apex of the grifting and the hustling, very few of these people are paying a price for it. They're just moving from one, sleazy globalist grifter hustler paymaster to another, and still keeping their salaries and their hugely inflated salaries and benefits. But the fundamental issue here is well, firstly, the mass money laundering machine that is the international NGO network. This entire network is completely controlled by the globalists and is infused with their ideological purpose and intent. But also how the degradation of the Western economies. I don't think there's any clearer example of it than a diversity director gets paid $500,000 a year, whereas the chief engineer of a huge public works project gets paid half that much. Until we address that as a fundamental issue, an issue of huge financial incentive and huge disincentive and huge distortion, till we address that and recognise it as a problem, I can't see a way out of this. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.